Hello, peace and blessings, and welcome back to Grace.Filled. So today we are on day 25, where we're going to be reading Genesis 38. We're going to be reading Genesis 38, 39, and 40. I cannot believe that we have made it 25 days. We have made it 5 weeks of seeking his face Monday through Friday. And I know some people are reading here and there and whenever they're able to get into it. But if it's your first time, if you've been here every single time, either way, I just want to say thank you. Just thank you for your kind words, for your likes, for your comments, just for being here as we walk this thing out together. And I want to be very honest and transparent and say that I'm tired. My watch shows that my battery is my personal battery is like less than 15%. But I want to say that only to say this. Even if we're tired, even if we're sick, even if we're stressed or depressed or down, if we're on the mountain high, if we're celebrating, right, no matter whatever state and space we find ourselves in, let us try as much as possible to be faithful, dedicated, and commitment to seeking his face, because really he is the breath of life and the very air that we breathe. And so it's so important that we make him a priority and really the center and the glue of our life, even with everything else going around. Everything else can fade away and everything else will fade away, but this is what's going to last. This is our firm foundation, and this is so important. So I just want to encourage you, and my prayer for you and for me is that the Lord would fill our cups, that he would refresh us, and that he would restore us and replenish us so we can keep doing his. And I always say, I'm like, Lord, this is for your name's sake, not for me. This is for you, for your kingdom, for your glory. This is your will be done on earth, right? Like I am doing this for you, as unto you. So I need the strength, I need the grace, I need the resources, I need what you have for me to do what you're calling for me to do. I want to do what you call for me to do, but I need you to help me do that. I can't do it without you. So we're gonna just jump right into it. We've just kind of figured out the history of what's happening with Joseph. So we're going to read these 38, 39, 40 chapters, these 3 chapters, and then I'm going to pray with you, and then I'm going to end the video, and that's going to be that. But I hope something in this video will encourage you, inspire you, motivate you. And if you're like me and you can't say the words, don't you worry. It's okay. I say to go ahead and get your slippers, your fuzzy socks, your tea, your drink. I have some tea, but I think I need to have a little bit more. So I'm going to go get some more tea. You guys get whatever you need, and then we're going to get right into it. And, if you are busy, I come here once I've taken care of every single thing I have to do, which is probably why I'm so tired. I need to come early, like at 4. But if you're like me and you just got all the things to do, put this on like a podcast while you clean it, while you're cook. You have the benefit of being able to listen to it in that capacity, so take advantage of it. But I love you, and again, I'm thankful that you're here. Genesis chapter 38, Judah and Tamar. At that time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam named Hera. There, Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shu. He married her and made love to her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son whose name was She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. It was at Kezib that she gave birth to him. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, "Sleep with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to raise up offspring for your brother." But Onan knew that the child would not be his, so whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from providing offspring for his brother. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death also. Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Live as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. for he thought he may die too, just like his brother. So Tamar went to live in her father's household. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shenu, died. When Judah had recovered from his grief, he went up to Timnah to the men who were shearing his sheep, and his friend Ira, the Adullamite, went with him. When Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law was on his way to Timnah to shear his sheep," she took off her widow's clothes, covered herself with the veil to disguise herself, and then sat down at the entrance of Enam, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that though Shelah had not grown up, she had not been given to him as a wife. So Judah saw her. He thought she was a prostitute, for she had her face covered. Not realizing she was his daughter-in-law, he went over to her by the roadside and said, "Come now, let me sleep with you." "And what will you give me to sleep with you?" she asked. "I'll send you a young goat from my flock," he said. "Will you give me something as a pledge until you send it?" she asked. He said, "What pledge should I give you?" "Your seal and its cord, and the staff in your hand," she answered. So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. And she left and took off her veil and put on her widow's clothes again. Meanwhile, Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adullamite in order to get his pledge back from the woman. But he did not find her. He asked the man who lives here, "Where is the shrine prostitute who was beside the road Enamah?" "There hasn't been any shrine prostitute here," they said. So he went back to Judah and said, "I didn't find her. Besides, the men who live there said there hasn't been any shrine prostitute here." Then Judah said, "Let her keep what she has, or we will become a laughingstock. After all, I did send her this young goat, but you can't find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of prostitution. As a result, she's now pregnant." Judah said, "Bring her out here and have her burned to death." As she was being brought out, she sent the message to her father-in-law. "I am pregnant by the man who owns these," she said. And she added, "See if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are." Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah, and he did not sleep with her again." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb, and as she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand. So the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his wrist and said, "This one came out first." But when he drew back his hand, his brother came out, and she said, "So this is how you have broken out." And his name was Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his wrist, came out, and his name was Zerah. Genesis 39. Joseph in Potiphar's house. When Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was captain of the guard for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph, and he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this, and he realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's house for Joseph's sake. All the household's affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he did not worry about a thing except what kind of food to eat. Joseph was very handsome and very well built, and Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. "Come and sleep with me," she demanded, but Joseph refused. "Look," he told her, "my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It will be a great sin against God." She kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day, but he refused to sleep with her. He kept out of her way as much as possible. One day, however, no one else was around, and he went to do his work. She came and grabbed him by his cloak, demanding, "Come sleep with me." So Joseph tore himself away, but left his cloak in her hand as he ran from the house. When she saw that she was holding his cloak and he had fled, she called out to her servants. Soon the men came running. "Look," she said, "my husband has brought this Hebrew slave here to make fools of us. He came into my room to rape me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream, he ran outside and got away, but left his cloak behind. She kept the cloak with her until her husband came home. Then she told him of her story. That Hebrew slave you brought into our house tried to come in and fool around with me, she said, but when I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his cloak with me. Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her. So he took Joseph and threw him into prison where the king's prisons were held, and there he remained. But the Lord was with Joseph even in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with even the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything that he did to succeed. If you want to have success in everything you do, whether you are with a king, whether you are in prison, an inmate, and you got favor with the warden, like I'm telling you, the Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. As we are seeking his face, we want the Lord to be with us and cause everything that we do to succeed. So I just encourage you to not give up, to not give in. I know some of you might be tired, weak, worn, you're going through, there's trials there. I know all the things. But if the Lord is for you, who can be against you? And even when people are against you, look at what the Lord does and what he can do. I ain't gonna hold you. We're gonna go right on to Genesis 40. All right, Genesis 40. And now we get to the passages that most people know the story of. And that's in Joseph interprets two dreams. So sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker offended their royal master. Pharaoh became angry with these two officials, and he put them in prison where Joseph was, in the palace of the captain of the guard. They remained in prison for quite some time, and the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, who looked after them. While they were in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each had a dream one night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed they both looked upset. "Why do you look so worried today?" he asked. And they replied, "We both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what it means." "Interpreting dreams is God's business," Joseph replied. "Go ahead and tell me your dream." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. "In my dream," he said, "I saw a grapevine in front of me. The vines had 3 branches that began to bud and blossom, and soon it produced clusters of ripe grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's cup in my hand, so I took a cluster of grapes and squeezed the juice into the cup. Then I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." "This is what the dream means," Joseph said. "The 3 branches represent 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as his chief cupbearer. And please remember me and do me a favor when things go well for you. Mention me to Pharaoh so that he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, and I've done nothing to deserve it." Can we just stop right here for a second? Has anybody ever felt like you have been in prison, like you have not done anything wrong? He said, "I have not done nothing wrong, but here I'm in prison. I did nothing to deserve this." Have you ever found yourself in a place where it's like, what did I do to deserve this? Like, what did I really do? Like, what is a scripture that I've shared before? If you've been here in the 9 years I've been on YouTube, I almost slipped when I saw the wealth of the wicked. It's like these people do all kinds of nonsense, and blessings, so it seems, upon blessings befall upon them. And it's like, man, what about when you're really doing the right thing and being faithful and devout? But guess what? Good things happen. Just keep waiting. When the chief baker saw Joseph had given the first dream such a positive interpretation, he said to Joseph, "I had a dream too." Be careful when you me too. If he really knew what he was about to get, he might not have said nothing at all. "In my dream, there were 3 baskets of white pastry stacked on my head. The top basket contained all types of pastries for Pharaoh, but the birds came and ate them from the basket on my head." "This is what the dream means," Joseph told him. The 3 baskets also represent 3 days. 3 days from now, Pharaoh will lift you up and impale your body on a pole. Then birds will come and peck away at your flesh. Pharaoh's party came in 3 days later, and he prepared a banquet for all the officials and staff. He summoned his head chief bearer and chief baker to join the other officials. He then restored the chief cupbearer to his former position so he could again hand Pharaoh his cup. But Pharaoh imperiled the chief baker, just as Joseph had predicted when he interpreted his dream. Pharaoh's cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. There's so much I could say. But I think for the sake of time, I'm just going to say this. Isn't it interesting how in one moment the word spoken can be life-changing, and in another moment forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought? Seasons change, people change, and I just want to encourage you, if seasons are changing and people are changing, to still be encouraged, because it doesn't mean that God, the Most High Yahweh, is finished with you. He's not done with you yet. There's a song that talks about if it's not good, he's not done with you yet. You thought because the chief cupbearer forgot Joseph and never gave him another thought, it's the end of Joseph's story. But when God's hand is upon you, baby, okay, I'm just trying to tell you, it don't matter who else forget about you. Joseph is fully known and loved by the Most High Yah. Father, we are so thankful for this time and space that you've allowed for your sons and daughters to come together. Father, my prayer is for those who are looking for people to remember them, looking for people to bring a blessing to them. And yes, there are scriptures talking about giving, it shall be given unto you, good measures pressed down, shaken together, run over, shall men give into your bosom. But I think the bigger picture here is sometimes we look to man for what you can provide and for what you do and what you should provide. And so it doesn't matter if man forgets about us, because you don't forget about us. You know every number of hair on our heads. You know all about us from the crowns of our heads to the soles of our feet. You knew us before you created us in our mother's womb. Not even a sparrow falls without you knowing about it. You are so intentional and so good. And you know how to use the broken things. You know how to use the hurtful things. You know how to use the pain. You know how to use the grief. You know how to use those things to turn for our good. You know how to use those things to refine us, to shape us, to mold us, to purge us, to draw us close to you. So Father, I just pray on tonight that you would draw us close to you like never before. I pray that when somebody else gets a word, gets a good word, gets a blessing and favor, it's not that we can't, but just be careful about me too and me next. Just help us to be patient. Help us to endure as a good soldier. And Father, most importantly, help us to be content and thrive, whether we're in a palace or whether we're in a pit, in a prison. Like, help us to endure and bring you glory wherever we are. Sometimes we feel like we have to have a big eye, big titles. We have to have all this grand, magnificent, all this money, all these things. But what I love about you, Father, is that you're good when we have all the things and when we have none of the things. And you don't look at us based upon how we quantify ourselves. You don't look at us and see what we have and what we don't have. You look at us and you see our heart. You look at us and you see our needs. We just want to say thank you for loving us, for being good to us. My prayer, Father, is for the orphans, for the widow, for the poor. I'm praying, Father, for the people that feel like you've overlooked them, like life has overlooked him. I'm sure Tamar didn't feel too good having these husbands be evil, and the father-in-law not even come through what he said. Father, I thank you. I just thank you. And I pray that you strengthen my brothers and my sisters. I pray that you would lay your hands on their children, their grandchildren, their nieces, their nephews, all that's connected to them. May they experience you in a way they have not experienced you before. We come to push back the hands of the enemy. We come to declare your glory and your peace, your freedom. I pray on tonight that you would change lives, that you would heal, deliver, and set free, that you would do a new thing in the lives of your sons and your daughters. And Father, I pray that people would surrender their hearts to you in the mountain, in the valley, in the pit, in the palace. I pray that all that we do will bring you glory and honor and praise. And just thank you for this time and this space. Help us to hide these words in our heart that we might not sin it against you. And help us to get what you have for us out of these messages. We love you. We give you glory, honor, and praise. In Yeshua's name, amen. So at this point, if this is your first time here, you've got 25 videos that you can go and watch. Put it on when you exercising. Put it on when you're cleaning. If you want to catch up, if you want to start right here and go forward, that's okay too. However the Lord leads you, you just follow him. But I just admonish you, whether you're doing this way, another way, just to get into his space, just to get into his presence, just to spend time with him and just to love on him. You know, we talk about we want to spend eternity with him, but it's like, well, do we even want to spend 20 minutes with him? You want to spend eternity with him? How about you spend an hour with him? You know, how about you spend time in your word with him? And we don't just want to talk about this person, right? This God that we've heard of, but we want to know him personally. We want to have encounters and experiences and relationships with him for ourselves. We want fresh manna, fresh word, fresh, revelation and knowledge. And what he did thousands of years ago, that's good. It's absolutely good. We take nothing from that. But it's also important to know that he's the God even of today. He's Lord of all, even now. And that he's still moving and delivering and setting free and making ways. He's still healing and just marvelous in all of his ways, perfect in all of his ways. And he's not the God of the then, but he's the God of the now, this moment. And whatever you need, you can just ask him. Because he's willing, he's near, he's faithful, he's just. And I think he just wants to hear your honest heart's cry and desire. Father, could you wrap me in your arms? Father, could you just hold me? Father, I just need you. Father, I'm struggling. Just be honest and see what he does in your life. So, I love you, but he loves you best. So peace and blessings, and I'll be here tomorrow, and we'll do it all over again as we are seeking his face.